My name's David Lorimer, and I'm here with one of our speakers at Beyond the Brain, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert, welcome.
Good to be with you, David.
I'm going to ask you one or two questions about what you're going to be presenting. And the first one is, was there a single experience or event that sparked your interest in consciousness beyond the brain?
Yes, I would say that in common with many other people, it was a psychedelic experience. When I was at Cambridge, I was a fellow of Clare College, Cambridge, recently been elected to a fellowship. I suppose I was about 26 or something. And I took LSD for the first time, and it just transformed my view of the nature of consciousness, because it showed there was vastly more to the mind than I'd ever been led to believe, certainly more than I'd ever learned about in my physiology lectures at Cambridge on neuronal functioning and action potentials. And it led to, me to a great interest in consciousness that, first of all, led to my taking up Transcendental Meditation, because I wanted to explore consciousness from within, which I did first around 1971. And secondly, to an interest in Indian philosophy, which then resulted in my taking up a job in India in 1974, where I stayed in India for about 7 years altogether. So yes, I would say that a psychedelic experience is what really woke up this interest. And then I realized there's vastly more to it than that. And particularly through living in India, came to have a greater appreciation of the richness of philosophy and spiritual practice bearing on this question.
Very interesting, Rupert. And if you were a newcomer to the field of the whole area of consciousness beyond the brain, what would you recommend people do or read or watch?
Well, go to a Beyond the Brain conference with the Scientific and Medical Network. I'm sure that's the answer you'd like to hear, and it's actually what I would actually recommend to an unbiased questioner. Because I think the Scientific and Medical Network has assembled a collection of speakers who have a long experience in this field. The Scientific and Medical Network has a long track record of interest in this field, including your own interest, David, which go back such a long way. And I think that this is, for one-stop shopping, it's a fantastic opportunity.
Well, thank you. That's always a welcome thought. And you'll be having a dialogue with Graham Hancock, and you share one experience in common, which is having your TED Talks moved about the same time. And he referred to this in the clip that I did with him. So what are you going to be talking about with Graham?
Well, frankly, I don't know, because I haven't talked about it yet with Graham. So I can't predict. I mean, one of the things about dialogues I like so much is the fact that they don't have a fixed agenda. We have a lot of overlapping interests. He's interested in, his interests differ from mine in that he's got, knows much more about psychoarchaeology, the history of consciousness as revealed through cultural research, through anthropology, through archaeology, and so on. And so he has a very broad-ranging view of consciousness covering those areas. Obviously, my own interests are more biological. I come to all these things as a biologist, and I'm interested not only in human, but also in non-human animal consciousness. We share an interest in psychedelics and their effects on consciousness and their cultural implications and their spiritual implications. And also share an interest in forms of consciousness beyond the human level. So I'm sure that will give us plenty of things to talk about in our dialogue, plus the fact we're old friends and enjoy being together. And as you say, had this same experience. So we were at the very same TEDx talk conference in London, which is where the trouble began. It was called, the entire meeting was called Challenging Existing Paradigms. And he and I did exactly what it said on the label. And of course, it got us into trouble with the TED authorities. But in the end, everything was fine because it's no longer possible to ban anything on the internet. And a lot of people heard about our talks because they were attempted to be banned by TED, and they probably did more good than harm in the end.
So it was like an own goal. Anyway, that's a very good reply, Rupert, and I'm sure our listeners will be very interested to see what transpires in the dialogue. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
A pleasure, David.